Absolutely, yeah. And I think the process we're trying to get to, then it kind of leads on to where design fits into it. So GYDE365 Design is the next stage. So if you think about Discover being that high level fit gap, we kind of determine to the customer, what's a solution that fits you better? Is it BC? Is it finance supply chain? Is it CE? Combination of all of them. Then the next stage is actually what we have in our design product, where then you get to those 20,000, but you've already levered what modules or bits of the Dynamics suite you need. Okay, and even though we call it GYDE365 Design, it's not for necessarily the implementation phase. You can still do it in sales to get a more refined view of your scope, and that then breaks down into actual, the full detailed requirements. And you end up with that kind of a real view of how is Dynamics going to work for me. So Discover is more the high level, and then we use design to get into that real firm design that we're going to deploy.
So you jumped ahead of me, because Discover's the piece that's been out forever and executing phenomenally. And now we go from Discover into design, which you say takes that initial set of requirements, and now we really fine tune it into what a project requirements is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So in Discover, we might ask the question, do you want to do automated invoicing and billing, right? So that's a simple requirement. But then in design, we're going to work out how we're going to do it. So on what basis, which type of customers are we going to do that for? Is it for all of them? Is it for procurement? Is it going to be three-way invoice matching? All those sorts of detail nuance. That's what we get out of design, right? So we don't even haven't had to buy Dynamics. We can still use this in that selection, and if I was a customer, I would do this all day long, because I'd rather invest an amount of money to make sure I know exactly what I'm getting before I'm committing to a major kind of system decision. That's really what design allows us to. We've had it embedded in there, even things like videos, so you can actually see then how that feature works within the Dynamics product. At the end of that process, we can give a very clear solution design of how that's going to work, where the potential gaps are, areas in which we may need to bring third parties, but that is a holistic solution blueprint that we can then go to market for, or to come up with a firm fixed build price.
So I'm an end user, and I can use Discover, input my requirements, and we're going to do a great match, and it's going to tell us if we want to stay on the Microsoft platform, ERP platform. I'm going to go either BC or SCM. And at that point, you have people that say, well, I want to see what the implementation or design looks for both, or does the Discover really intend to drive you in one direction or the other?
Yeah, so it kind of informs you in Discover whether, so finance supply chain may give you 90% fit, but it's going to be much more expensive than BC. That's kind of your typical scenario. Or BC gives you almost the same amount of percentage, but it's going to be deployed faster, right? So you as a customer make that decision. When we go to design, we do need to know the target solution we're mapping to.
Right.
Okay? That's not to say you couldn't do it for both, but from a time point of view, you probably need to, because each survey is very specific to capability within the target solution.
Yeah. So when I think about 8-10 years ago, I stood in front of a user group and with a presentation that I was very nervous about, because I thought I was going to get booed off the stage. Because my thought process was that, based on my experience in the industry and 3 minor criteria for a successful project: on time, on budget, and on spec, there's never been a successful ERP project in the history. And everybody's like, yeah, you're right. And so I was very surprised by the reaction, because, like I said, I was expecting, folks to boo. But now when I say that, it's interesting. The response is people laugh, because bad projects have moved from being understood to being a joke, and which is ridiculous as an industry, right? And if we think about what is it that we're doing to fix that problem, and this is one of those fabulous tools, because when I think about one of the 2 primary causes for bad projects, it's bad requirements, or requirements that take forever, and then 2, what I call overly exuberant demos. And if you think about moving from Discover into design, you can almost remove those ridiculous sales demos with that design process that gets you into the software at a greater depth, and to have a better understanding of how this is going to process your critical functionality.
100%, yeah, and I think the demos are a complete waste of time. It's like a good pre-seller will produce any demo that their customer wants. So what are you actually achieving, right?
Yeah.
If I was looking at system deployment myself in the customer's shoes, I'd want to know really, where are the gotchas and how is this going to work in my business? And I don't want to spend months doing it. Can I, in a 3 or 4 week engagement, I'll be happy to pay for that, and work out, based on this is how it's going to map together and know where the gaps. And that's what we aim to do with design, right? And it's not relying upon, the problem we have is as a product set increases in capability, it also increases in complexity, right? And it's hard for all the consultants to know all the application, and that's what we kind of do with GYDE. We democratize it. Anybody could use it, but all the help, everything's up to date with the latest capability of product. So we